We live in an age where absolutely everyone is connected. Instant messages and social media allow people to talk to each other at any hour of the day. And yet, recent studies warn of a deeply troubling reality. More than 40% of adults report feeling completely alone, disconnected, and isolated. What is causing this silent epidemic in a world that never sleeps? Why are we lonelier than ever while being surrounded by constant noise? There's something strange happening right now. While some feel abandoned by the world, others have made a very different choice. They have actively decided to start walking away from certain people. They looked at their phone screen, saw a familiar name, and chose something very simple. They chose to say, "Not today, maybe never again." And here's the most unexpected part of this phenomenon. These people do not feel lonely or broken inside. In fact, many of them report that they have never felt so peaceful. This brings us to a critical question. At what exact moment does that internal switch flip? When does someone transform into the person who walks away and never looks back? The truth is that most of these people were not always this way. There was a time when you were the one everyone relied on. You were the reliable friend who answered text messages at 3 in the morning. You were the shoulder to cry on, listening to others vent for hours. You were the peacemaker who tried to fix every argument when others fought. They called your name whenever something went wrong, because you always answered. You listened to the exact same problems and gave the exact same advice. You watched as nothing ever changed, yet you still showed up the next time. You did this over and over again, until one small, invisible moment shifted everything. Your phone rang. You looked at the screen, and for the first time, you decided not to answer. And then something incredible happened. The world did not fall apart. Instead, everything around you just became a little bit quieter. That moment of pulling back was not a sign of emotional weakness. Your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to protect you. Renowned researcher Stephen Porges explains that our nervous system operates in different modes. One of these modes is entirely dedicated to social connection. This is the state we enter when we feel completely safe with other people. But there is another hidden mode that activates when the system detects deep exhaustion. It triggers when there is too much emotional stress and too much energy given away for too long. When you hit that limit, your nervous system switches its entire strategy. It reduces contact, pulls you back, and conserves your remaining energy. This does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your body realizes it must protect its most precious resources. And emotional energy is one of the most limited resources we possess. But this raises another important question. Where did your nervous system learn that certain relationships are a threat to your well-being? For many adults, the answer begins long before the pressures of adult life. It starts during early childhood. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where you had to read the room constantly. You hyper-focused on the changing moods of the adults around you. You noticed the exact moment the emotional atmosphere began to shift. You learned exactly when it was best to stay quiet. You learned when it was safest to completely disappear. Psychiatrist Murray Bowen described this specific behavior with a concept called emotional cutoff. This pattern develops when a child learns that emotional closeness equals tension or unpredictability. As a result, the brain develops a powerful survival adaptation. It learns to maintain a safe distance, to never depend too much, and to never expose its vulnerabilities. What began as a way to protect your younger self becomes a pattern that follows you for decades. But this is where the human story becomes much more complex. Not every act of walking away is created equal. There's a massive difference between self-protection and building walls that block out the entire world. Health research consistently shows that prolonged isolation can damage your physical well-being. But there is an alternative truth that people rarely mention. Being surrounded by the wrong people can be just as toxic to your health. Therefore, the ultimate question is not whether you should let people into your life. The real question is, who actually deserves a place in it? There's a fascinating trait shared by people who walk away from draining connections. They rarely make this decision at random. Over time, they become incredibly skilled at detecting human patterns. They recognize the friend who only calls when they need a favor. They see the family member who mixes affection with constant criticism. They spot the person who arrives with intense energy and then suddenly vanishes. Your mind begins to see the cycles, the empty promises, and the repeating behaviors. And once you have seen the exact same pattern 50 times, you begin to trust your eyes. Recent psychological studies have uncovered something remarkable about this sensitivity. People who experienced higher emotional stress early in life develop a sharper awareness of social cues. The brain becomes hyper-attentive to tiny shifts in the behavior of others. This is not paranoia. It is accumulated life experience. Your mind has spent years observing, comparing, and learning. It has built a highly sophisticated early warning system. So when that system signals that a relationship will drain you, you finally learn to listen. Modern society loves to use words like antisocial or isolated to describe people who pull away. But those labels assume that more connection is always better. They assume we must always want more people, more interactions, and more noise. Yet there is a completely different experience called the peace of chosen solitude. This is not the type of loneliness that aches inside. This is the deep calm of a quiet space where your mind can finally rest. The phone rings less, unnecessary conflicts disappear, and the emotional noise fades away. And in that beautiful silence, many people discover something unexpected, which is true peace. People who do not understand this journey will claim that you are running away. But the exact opposite is usually true. You are not running away from life. You are moving closer to it. You are drawing closer to a quieter existence and to honest relationships. You are moving toward a version of yourself that is not constantly exhausted. If you have ever judged yourself for cutting ties with certain people, listen closely to this. You are not cold-hearted. You are not incapable of loving others. You are not an emotionless person. You are simply someone who learned a profound truth. Not everyone deserves access to your limited energy, and choosing to protect your inner peace is one of the bravest actions a person can take. There is a famous Harvard University study that has followed human happiness for over 70 years. The ultimate conclusion of this massive research is beautifully simple. It is not the number of friends in your life that matters most. The only thing that truly predicts happiness is the quality of those relationships. So if your social circle is small, but filled with people who genuinely respect you, you are doing fine. If they are truly there when it matters, you are not failing at life. In fact, you are doing it exactly right.